It was a quarter section, which includes this property all the way to the other side of the church. And it was actually deeded to someone by the name of Father Morin, who, hence, the name was, the town was named after him. It was, at that time, not the province of Alberta, and it was the Dominion of Canada lands.
Okay.
After that, a farmer by the name of Fortier cultivated some of the land. And then the earliest recollection that anybody has is that there was a small house, and they thought maybe another house was moved onto the lot. Mm-hmm. Since then, architects know they probably built on, right? So people may have thought another house moved on. And that family was a French family by the name of Desautels. Work. So he bowed out to both the windows here and again upstairs. The house was of wood siding, so he did a brick facade on the outside. Mm-hmm. That's when there was some renos in the kitchen too. Okay. He then, with his wife, Mary, had 4 children. One of the, was 3 girls, 1 son. One of the girls died of diphtheria. Both girls, their bedroom was in the yellow room upstairs. And everybody who comes, who's been here, correct, Julie, that when the family was living here have just fond memories. There is like not a, that they would talk about how they would play in this area. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing town-wise, since like he did the books, there's nothing that you would hear through the course of history that, you know, he wasn't a desirable character or not. No, everything that we've heard is all positive about both. So, that's good.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe, Kathy, if you can relate what I was sensing and see if it makes any sense.
Okay, when Doug came through the front door, in that little vestibule area that you got there, he picked up the feeling of a middle-aged gentleman, sort of mid to late 50s, big man, about 6 feet, 6'1", well built, well groomed, dark suit, big hands, but very calm presence.
Mid to late 50s.
Yeah, I said that already. Yeah. Does that?
Well, he's like, I would say he's calm. Big though, he's slight in the pictures, but that's after his stroke. So
yeah, anybody else? So.
One of the things we use when we're investigating anything is what we call EMF meters. EMF meters register the electromagnetic field of any appliance or any environment that we're working in. The reason why we do this is because EMF affects the frontal lobe of the brain. It gives people the impression of anxiety, vertigo, feelings of being watched. It makes them sick. Some people are more prone to it than others, but it can often be confused with symptoms of a haunting. So what we do is we try and rule out the normal before we entertain the question of paranormal. All very normal.
yeah.
Oh, these windows ring a bell. A little opening
I
there.
really thought there was going to be some in that area.
Yeah.
It was Joan's just feeling physical.
Yeah, right in here.
Yeah.
Right in here. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
picking it up
exactly.
too. Could be the fact though that the house is slightly off kilter.
That's I think
so
exactly
that when
what
you,
it is.
yeah, when you look at something that's stationary.
Appliances are high.
Yes. You tend to get. I can check. I've got my sheets with me.
Yeah, the appliances are high.
Yeah.
It's really easy to do a pink house and do maybe the stairs you see.
Yeah.
Same layout. Little gift shops and cute. Like high.
So this is the one we were talking about that the young girl was
Yeah.
at, correct?
Yeah, I think so. That's a little high.
When we do any sort of investigation, we must take the point of view of the skeptic, because when we present a piece of evidence to the world at large, there's going to be people who's going to analyse it, and analyse it with a fine-tooth comb to try and find the problems. So we've got to take the skeptic's point of view, if you like, devil's advocate, to try and disprove it before we can present it.
Add to what Doug was saying, and that is that we try to recreate what might be. If somebody has been reporting that a glass has been falling off a table and it's been sitting in the middle of the table, so we try to recreate scenarios that might have occurred to knock that glass off. That's just one example. Yeah.
Alrighty, so basically what EVP is short form for electronic voice phenomenon. It's one of the oldest tools used in paranormal research. It was actually started by Thomas Edison long time ago. So anyway, essentially what it is the ability to capture voices or sounds that shouldn't be there on audio. We use digital mainly because it's easier to get onto the computer, but you can use analog as well. So essentially what the idea is that we're able to leave these in a room or something like that and invite whoever it is to say hi, essentially. It becomes an amazing communication device. There's been times where we've gotten answers back and direct answers to the questions, which has been kind of phenomenal. But the main thing with EVP is, you know, there's been a lot of debate about it as to, you know, where these recordings and where these voices come from. One of them, you know, people have theorized, oh, we're picking up, you know, flying, like, just false radio signals, we're picking, you know, whatever it is, it's being recorded on. But the interesting thing is, especially with the analog, is that the analog, there's been cases where the answers to the questions have been recorded on the reverse side of the tape. There's been cases where where things have been actually said backwards. We've actually had to rewind to understand. It's just a phenomenal thing. Some of the voices actually end up recorded once we are able to stick these into the computer on a frequency that, say, you or I can't record at. So it's actually coming in on a completely different frequency, whether it be higher or lower than what we are actually able to generate with our voice if we were sitting in the room. So main thing we want to do is we want to have everything set up so that there's no, you know, external sound. So we want to make sure that there's, you know, everybody's seated, we know where everybody is, everything can be accounted for, and oftentimes what we'll do is we'll stick one of these in a room and have a camera on it so that we know exactly what's happening, so that there's no chance of anybody tampering with it or anything like that. So it's super important. You know, even when we're recording, you know, if somebody coughs or something like that, we have to turn around and say, oh, cough. You know, because when we're listening back, we don't want to, you know, screw it up for something else. So the other thing is, if you do have to talk, is we ask you to just talk, don't whisper, because then the whispering becomes, it's like, oh, what was that? Oh, who was that? I don't know. So yeah, it becomes a little bit tricky. So that's the main thing with EVP. And yeah, oftentimes, I mean, you know, there's been a lot of times where we don't capture anything. There's been times where we've caught not the voice of spirits per se, but actually residual, what we call residual energy, playing back through the house. Sometimes this can happen under the right conditions. If you want to think of it like a needle on a phonograph kind of idea, where you take, you know, you look at a vinyl record, and the vinyl record has, you know, it looks pretty boring, right? If you just, you know, pick one up, somebody who didn't know what it was would think, you know, what are we using this for? Under the right conditions, like a phonograph, put a needle on it, it plays a masterpiece. And sometimes this is what happens in homes as well, and we've caught that on audio. For example, we were at a great big old hospital at one point, and we left the video cameras running, and although we heard nothing at the time, when we got the cameras back, we got the footage back, we actually could hear respirators, we could hear elevators running that shouldn't have been running, doors slamming that shouldn't have been slamming. Not because there was a spirit there, but simply because the environment had literally absorbed the memory, if you want to call it that, of what was going on in the environment. So that can be caught on these too, which is really cool. So we're going to stick a couple of these suckers out and see what goes.
Yep.
Okay. What's your name? Would you be able to give us the reason as to why you've chosen this place to enjoy your time?
have you been a resident in this house before?
Again, if there's anybody here that would like to chat, if you step in front of the table, that would be most appreciated. It will allow us an indication as to whether or not there's somebody here.
You gave us a couple of issues that you've been having around the tea room. One was that Julie was feeling some problems upstairs in the yellow room, and she felt as though there was a presence there, and she was a bit kind of bit of aware of it. She wasn't scared or anything like that. And the other issue we were having was with the labels disappearing. So the first one we'd done was we had a look at the yellow room just to see exactly if there was any natural issues that we could put down to the feelings that she was having. Now, on the side of the cool room, you have a compressor which sits up high on the wall. Now we put a meter against it and we're getting 80 milligauss off the compressor, which is not a good thing. That will account for most of the feelings that she was experiencing. So we can't say yes or no if that room is haunted, simply because that compressor is kicking off enough EMF to make those feelings. The other thing was with the plastic or the paper stickers. This one, we can't prove this is going to be a long-term thing. You know, it's something you're going to have to maybe document. See if there's a pattern to it. See if you can, you know, maybe a certain time of the day, a certain, you know, hour of the day, day of the week, whatever, you know. If you can start to record the frequency, then that would be an opportunity for us to come back and.
Very nicely, the next time you notice something missing, is just at that moment when you notice it, just very nicely say, I would really appreciate it if you didn't move or remove whatever item is missing, and see what happens.
So it becomes tricky for us because there is issues with the EMF of the compressor or whatever. We can't actually go in and say yes.
Right.
But on the flip side, now, I certainly felt a presence here when I was in earlier. But again, it's a personal experience. You know, it's not something that we can.
It's not conclusive.
It's not conclusive. We can't say for sure. It may just be my weird, wacky ways. But,
nah.
So, but yeah, we think. I would personally say that you've got a presence here. It's not. It's. I felt it quite calm, quite soothing. But as I said, for document's sake, then you know we've got to go with what we can find. And we found, as I say, we found readings on our meters that would emulate a haunting situation. So if we could get it switched off.
Yeah.